All right, so the first part of this task that you're going to be working on is the tables and the graph. And we're going to look over here under the graph portion. I will show you how to make the tables, but it kind of comes hand in hand with the graphs. So I'm going to show it through the graph tab. So in here, the first graph that you're going to be making is based on your assigned city, and you're looking at the average yearly temperature and total precipitation per year for that city. Now, to find your city, you have to go back over here to the data table tab and come down to the city assignments. Once you have your city assignment, then you come back and you look up the raw data sheet. When climatologists look at data, they're looking at lots and lots of data. And so they come out in spreadsheets that the climatologists then kind of have to sift through to see what variables are they looking for, to see what kind of impact a change in one of those variables will have. And so in this case, we're looking for the variables of yearly temperature and precipitation. And so your data sheet is going to look something like this. Now, this is a sample data sheet. It does not have accurate data in it, so please don't copy anything out of here. Just kind of watch what I'm doing, and you can have your data sheet open and be doing the same kind of things to your own data while I'm doing it with this data. In this assignment, I would really recommend that you're using either a laptop or a desktop. There's going to be a lot of things to look at and a lot of things that would be much easier to see on a bigger screen. If your iPad is just like the standard iPad size, it might be a little bit difficult to do some of the things that you need to do for this. So you should be able to work on either like have a desktop at home or a laptop at home, at the school or public library, anywhere where they have internet access, you can access Google Sheets because it's your drive. You will also need to be logged into your district Google account in order to access the sheet. So make sure that you're logged in as well. So in the first, when you first open up your data sheet, you'll see some tabs down at the bottom. You'll see minimum temperature and precipitation, and you're going to see lots of data if you look at both of these sheets. There's lots of data in here. I've already done a little bit of consolidating of data because it actually comes out from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration with a lot more data than this. So I kind of narrowed our focus a little bit. But we're going to be looking at annual mean precipitation and annual mean temperature. And so remembering that mean means average. So you can use those words interchangeably. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to make a copy of this tab so that way I'm not messing with my original data. And I'm going to call this graph number 1. Since we're making 4 graphs, it'll be nice to keep them kind of together and like looking at it. So you will see at the top of your data sheet that it doesn't start at 1. Please do not expand that. There's 2 sets of data because they adjusted for urban heating. And so we want to make sure that we're only using the second half of the data, and that's why it's hidden up here at the top. So please don't open that part up because it'll mess up your graphs. So the other thing I want you to notice is the date, because not all of the data sets start on the same date. So in this one, for the temperature, it actually starts at 1904, but precipitation, it starts at 1903. So when I start copying data back and forth, I want to make sure I'm copying the same years that are all inclusive. So since the latest date that they will start is 1904, I'm going to start at 1904. When I copy, I need to copy first the top row. Because this is frozen, it doesn't allow you to copy this and all of that. It kind of goes a little bit wonky on you. So I'm going to copy over my headings first. And then I'm going to come back over to precipitation. Because this particular table is both precipitation and temperature, I need them all on the same data sheet to be able to graph. So I'm going to copy all of my data. Looking again, once again, I started at 1904. I'm going to come back over to graph 1. I'm going to plug my data in. Now, with them both on the same thing, this is now, they both say this is annual total, annual mean. It doesn't really refer to what it actually is. So remembering that I copied over my temperature sheet, this is actually the annual mean temperature. So I'm going to update that so that it actually says what I want it to say, and so it means labeled means something to me. And over here, this is precipitation. So this is annual total precipitation. Now my graph asks for the mean temperature and the mean precipitation. And right now in my data set, I have mean temperature, but I have total precipitation. So I don't have the mean, which is what I really want. And so to do the mean, I need to insert another column here. And then I don't want this total, so I'm going to hide it. I don't want to delete anything out of the sheet. I only want to hide things because if I delete, then it messes up the numbers. But if I hide it, it doesn't. So to find the average here, I'm going to highlight the row. And then I'm going to come up here to my toolbar. This is called a sigma sign. And I'm going to fill it to average. And you'll see that the average shows up out here. If the average shows up and it's longer than 2 digits, then 2 places, excuse me, to the right of the decimal place, then I'm going to change that to make sure that I only have 2 places to the right of that. Now I can just grab that little corner there and I can pull the formula down and it's going to average up all of this data in here for me, which is what I really wanted. My particular data set ends at 2003. Yours will go all the way to 2018. But since on these I don't have the comparable data over here, I'm going to take this out. You will not do that for yours because you will have data from the temperature and the precipitation all the way down to 2008. Now, when I go to graphing, when was my annual mean precipitation? So now I have the data in my table, but I don't want to graph all this stuff. I only want to graph the year, the annual mean temperature, and the annual mean precipitation. And so to do that, I'm going to hide some columns. So I don't need station over here. I'm going to hide that. So I right click and I click hide column. And I don't need all of the monthly stuff. So I'm going to hide that. And I don't need this monthly stuff. So I'm going to hide that. So now I'm left with the data that I actually want to graph. I want to graph the year, the annual mean temperature, and the annual mean precipitation. Now when I make my graph, it's helpful if I have a place to put it into. I can actually move the graph around. So I just added in a column and made it really big. So I'm going to be graphing these two against the year. So I'm going to highlight just those two, not the year yet. And I'm going to highlight all of my data in those. And I'm going to say insert chart. And chart comes up. Now you'll notice on the chart that I don't have an x-axis, and that's where I want the year to be, right? Because I was plotting it, it told me in the directions that I needed to plot it against the year that the data was collected. So over here on the right-hand side in Google Sheets, you'll see that it comes up with add axis. So I'm going to click add axis, x-axis. I'm going to go back up to the top here. I'm going to highlight my x-axis all the way down to the end. And I'm going to say OK, and that's going to pop it up in here for me. All right, so now I have an x-axis. What I don't have is a label on this side, and I don't have a title. I need those things. So to do that, and I also, if you look down here at the bottom, you'll see that it goes every other year. And I really want all my years of data. I'm going to stretch this out a little bit until all my years are shown. Okay, so to get all of my titles on here, I'm going to come over here to customize my chart editor, and I'm going to click on chart and axis titles. In my chart title, it told me in the directions that I needed to have the name of the city, the latitude and longitude of the city, and I needed to have a title that was descriptive of the data that was in there. So in this particular table and chart, what we're looking at is the annual mean, not right, mean temperature and happy to know that the spell checker works in here, so you can click on that. Now, the next thing that I need in here, and to make the next line down, I push down Control and Enter, and it gives me another space. And now I'm going to put the city, and state of where I was at. So for example, if my data set were in Phoenix, Arizona, I would but you'll put whatever your data set is, but I'm just going to leave that in there for an example. And then I would put in my latitude and longitude. And I just click Control Enter. Now to find my latitude and longitude, I'm just going to open up another internet window. and latitude, Arizona. My latitude and longitude. And grab that. And I'm going to put it in there. Now, if I come in and I decide that there's something wrong in here, now I can just double click in here and I can edit. I don't have to come back over here. Okay. Now, I still need to have my labels. I need my Y label and I need my X label. So I'm going to come first. I'm going to click down on this and I'm going to come to my horizontal axis, which is my X axis. This is years. See it pop up. And then I need my vertical axis. And this is a little bit tricky, right? Because I have temperature and I have precipitation, so I don't have a single type of unit. So before I do this, I actually need to make sure that I have my units appropriately labeled on the axis. So before I can go in and put a title in on the axis, I have to do something first. So I need to come over to the next one down that says series. And my annual mean temperature, I'm going to leave on my left axis. Then I can click on my precipitation and I can change that over to the right axis. So now I have numbers that actually refer to the data that I was looking at. So once again, I put my annual mean precipitation is over here on the right. So now I can come back up here to my chart title. And now I have a vertical axis and a right vertical axis. So the vertical axis is always the one on the left, and the right vertical axis is clearly on the right. So I'm going to start with that one. This was precipitation, and it's in hundredths of inches. And then on the vertical axis, or the left-hand side, I have temperature, and that is in degrees Celsius. All right. Now I have all of my data. I've got all my labels. So I've got all my years are showing up. And so you can see how kind of big this is on my screen. It needs to be this big in your picture because when you post into the discussion board, your classmates need to be able to read everything. So you don't want to shrink it way down so nobody can see what you're doing. So now I'm going to take a snip or a picture or a screenshot or however you do this on your particular device. You're going to save this as an image. You'll save the JPEG of it and go into my area. Sorry, you see all my names of my files in there. This is temperature and precipitation. Or it might be a little bit easier too if you call it graph 1. So that way you're keeping track of all of your stuff. That's how you're going to make graph number 1. You're going to then, for your table, you've made your graph, your table's right here. This is your data table. So for this one, you might have to do it like side by side. You might have to add in a couple of columns and move it to the side. Now that you've grabbed your picture, you can move the stuff around, and it's not going to matter what happens to your chart over here. So you could make it double side by side, so that way it actually will fit within one picture. This one's not going to fit within a picture, obviously, because it's part of the whole screen. You also need to make sure that you have an appropriate title. Once again, just like we titled over here, you need to have all this stuff in the title for your table as well. So it needs to all come together. Please do not choose the type of graph that has the data table below here. That is not acceptable for this particular assignment. It will make it far too difficult to read and far too small. You have a separate data table and a separate graph.